Hey guys, welcome back to Tribe of Unicorns. I'm your host, Kendra Beavis, and today I'm sitting down with my brilliant friend and a total force in the wellness world, Keri Glassman. Keri is a nationally recognized registered dietitian. She's also a best-selling author of 4 books and the founder of Nutritious Life and Nutritious Life Studio, a wellness education platform that's helped shape thousands of nutrition coaches around the globe. You may have seen her on the Today Show, The Doctors, Rachel Ray, and pretty much everywhere where media meets meaningful wellness. In this episode, we'll dive into her inspiring journey from corporate ad sales to building a media-savvy brand rooted in science, soul, and entrepreneurship. We talk risk-taking, building community, battling imposter syndrome, and why your childhood passions might actually be the best career clues you've got. So whether you're curious about becoming a certified nutrition coach, leveling up your wellness game, or just want to be inspired by an unbelievable entrepreneur, you're absolutely in the right place. Hey, Keri, how are you today?
I am good. It's so nice to see you. I miss you.
See you. It's freezing here.
I know. Well, that's why I'm wearing this big cozy sweater today. There's only like a couple days of the year that I can actually wear a sweater this thick and big and cozy, but today was one of them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been brutal. But I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. We've been working together for a couple of years, and I just so look up to you and admire everything you've built and you as a person. So thank you for coming on
Aw.
and
Well,
sharing your
thank
story.
you. Well, thank you for those nice words. And I love working with you. And I mean, right back at you. You're just so talented at what you do that I'm just happy to be here chatting with you.
So I wanted to talk about your journey from, where you started to where you are today.
Ooh, how did I start out? It's so funny. I always say I've been in this nutrition wellness industry for so many years at this point. I feel like a great grandma in this industry. I started out, I think you may have heard this story that my first job out of college in 1995 was at Sports Illustrated. And so we used to get all the magazines for free. And when Health Magazine would come around each month, I would just sit there and not do my job. And I would just read it cover to cover. Even in college, I would say that I wanted to study nutrition. I was at Tufts, which has this incredible nutrition program,
Yeah.
but I just didn't think of myself as a science person. I was a political science with a concentration in philosophy major. Fast forward, I'm at Sports Illustrated. I'm reading Health Magazine cover to cover. And I say, I got to go back and study this. So I started taking classes in nutrition. And so that's where it really started. I worked for an online health and fitness company right after I got my master's in clinical nutrition. Everything I was doing was really business related. And I always say that I didn't go to business school, but that was like my 2 years of business school because I learned so much about business because it was a startup. And if you've ever worked at a startup, there's everybody wears 100 different hats. So I learned so much, which was great, but I really got away from doing nutrition and what I was really passionate about. And so I started a private practice, and that was the very beginning.
It's funny because like you kind of mentioned when you were younger that this was a large interest of yours. And I see that a lot where people finally find like what their passion is. And once they've, taken the steps to make a business out of it, it often is mimicked from when you're a child.
Oh, 100%. And I tell it's so funny you're saying that because you know that I have this whole community now of people that I coach I certify them to be nutrition and wellness coaches. And when I'm talking to people about taking that step, up leveling their career or changing careers and thinking about going into this field, I often ask them, like, what were you passionate about as a kid? What was that first sign that you thought this was something you're interested in? And I can't even tell you how many people out there are like, well, I'm a lawyer, but I always loved baking, or, I'm in marketing, but I was always fascinated with, taking exercise classes and figuring out how food fueled my body. Or so I feel like you're absolutely right. These passions are often in us. And then we sort of just get on another track because, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. Or we didn't even know something was a career.
Yeah.
And so we don't do it. That was like with me. Yes, I did do it only 2 years out of college. So I was pretty young when I started. It wasn't like this major second career. But I still I didn't know it to be a career. Even when I was in college, I really didn't think about like what careers I could have gone into in that field. Maybe I would have taken the leap. I don't know. So you're absolutely right. I think many of us have these things that we've been passionate about for our whole lives. Or sometimes I say there was a triggering event. There was an
Right.
event, something that happened. Someone got sick. Or you got sick. There was an illness or something happened that triggered that passion. But
Right.
oftentimes those passions have been in us. And so we have to really like think about that. And I also talk to parents about that. It's like,
Always.
take note of like what your kids are interested in, because then oftentimes they get to, oh, this is what people are doing, this is what I was told I could, this is what a teacher said I should do, or
Right.
seems like a good major to then get a good job. But you have to really like keep reminding your kids of the things that they were interested in as kids.
Especially from this up and coming generation's standpoint, like what they have exposure to is so much more than what you and I had exposure to. There were like
Oh,
20
absolutely.
career paths, maybe.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe.
you fit yourself into them. And these kids, they can really see like all these little niche jobs that are in industries
Totally.
that are super cool that you didn't know. I didn't know. I knew I wanted to be a graphic designer, but I didn't know what that looked like. So I was working in the city and I
Right.
hated it.
Right. Right.
So, I think it's always interesting to see like where you end up. So you went back to school, you got your master's,
Hmm.
and you started working for this startup. What was the pivot when you knew, okay, I want to do this for myself?
Well, I think when I said, well, I'm learning a lot, but I'm not really doing what I'm passionate about anymore. So I was doing everything from selling these websites to doing Excel sheets to, I mean, all kinds of stuff. Then, sometimes you start thinking about certain things, or you put things out there into the world, and then it happens. And then someone
Mhm.
I knew was opening a private training studio. I didn't know the person opening the studio. Someone I knew the people opening the private training studio. And they said they're looking for a dietitian to have an office there. So you can say, oh, that was lucky that they needed someone in that office. But I mean, I think you put things out there and you decide certain things that you want to do. And oftentimes opportunities will arise, and then it's a matter of jumping on them. And so I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing starting my own business. You don't learn in school how to run a nutrition practice. You don't learn much about counseling and coaching. So I knew all like the physiology and I knew nutrition science, but I did not know, again, a lot about coaching. I did not know about running a business. And so that's why I always say like that experience at the startup was the 2 years of the business school part. And then getting my master's was like the hardcore nutrition science part. But the real like entrepreneurship and all of that, like I had to like kind of learn that as I went. And I think some of that is just being an entrepreneur. Like if you're
Yeah.
just an entrepreneur, like it's in your blood. And so I think when this opportunity came up to rent this office, I just said, sure, I'll do it. I'll go for it. I didn't really think like, okay. And again, this is good and bad. I didn't really think like, ooh, well, wait, what if I don't have any clients that first month? How am I going to pay that rent? Like I just jumped.
Yeah.
By the way, I mean, all these years later, almost 30 years later, I do the same thing still sometimes. And not that I don't have a plan. I do. I am strategic and have plans, but there's always, I think if you're an entrepreneur, there's always a little bit of you've got to jump and find the parachute on the way down. I do that in a big way. And I think probably when I was younger, I probably did it even more, but I have no problem doing that. And I think you have to have a little bit of that in you if you're going to be an entrepreneur.
How much do you think is having faith in yourself to make to take that leap of faith?
I think you have to have a certain amount of faith in yourself, but I think it's also it's almost, to me, that attitude is almost bigger than the faith in yourself. To me, it's like they're just two separate things. I
Yeah.
think you can doubt yourself and you can have imposter syndrome and all of that and still have that ability and that character trait to be able to say, I'm going for it and I'm going to figure it
Yeah.
out.
I work with a lot of women and who are looking to start different businesses, and we're always trying to figure out, what specifically that is for them. But it also has to you have to have that drive. You have to have that, like, I'm going to make this work no matter what. And, I'm always curious, where does that come from? Where do you think it comes from in you?
I do think it was just in me from birth. I'm a driven person. I was driven in school. I was driven in sports. I think some of it is innate, but I don't think that it has to be innate. I think you absolutely can learn it. And I think the best way to learn it is like going for it and falling down again and falling down again. You don't have to be like a natural risk taker or a natural entrepreneur.
I grew up, my whole family were entrepreneurs. They owned a milk business for 3 generations. So I think for me, growing up in that environment and understanding, like, you can kind of create something that's completely unique, even though you don't have a model, and watching them sort of navigate that was what allowed me to kind of had that permission to go ahead, and I'm just going to not stop until, fall down a million times, like you said, and get back up and learn from that, and keep going.
So I'm glad you brought that up about your family, because I do have to say, I think that that probably is a big part of it. My dad was an entrepreneur as well. And it's funny, it's not like I used to have these big like pep talks about like, you can do this and you can do that. It wasn't like there was all these big, but it was sort of this unsaid thing of, you can do whatever you want in the world.
Yeah.
Why not? It was, and again, it's not like my dad used to sit me down every Sunday night and say, I have confidence in you and you can do this. You can do this. It was, again, it was this unspoken vibe. It was this, like, this is the vibe of like the way I was raised was, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. Like,
Yeah.
and we're here to support you with it, whatever you want to do. Like, it really, there was no pressure to, you should go to law school or you should do this. It was more, work hard, be a good person. And like, we got you. Like, we're going to support you through that. So I think that like that probably played a bigger role than I give it, I give it credit for it. I'm giving credit now, but I don't know that I think about it all the time, because again, it wasn't like this, this big like conversation all the time or this big moment, but it was just this like, that's the thing. And my parents are still like that to this day. I mean, I'm 52 years old and I feel like my parents are the most supportive people in the world in terms of, in lots of different ways, like so many different ways, but they're just like, you got this, go for it. Do whatever you want. You can do anything, and anything in the world you want to do, you can do it. I just think like it really was, that was sort of that was definitely the energy, in my household, definitely the energy. And there was no like, there was no like limiting conversation like, oh, you can't do this because of that, or that's going to be too difficult for you. I mean, I think if I had come home from college and said, hey, I want to be an astronaut, the only thing my dad would have said is, your eyesight's not great, don't you have to have perfect eyesight? Like, but aside from that, he would have been like, great,
That's so cool.
Go be an astronaut. So I think like that's like, that does probably, yeah, getting sentimental here as I'm thinking about it.
Good parents. So, all right. So you open up this office. Now, how did you transition over to Nutritious Life, the brand, after that?
Yeah, well, I actually, the name of my business when I started was my initials, KKG Body Fuel, but it was Body Fuel. But the logo for that business was a little brain for symbolizing stress, with a little like little markers coming out of it, with a little arrow. As a graphic designer, you would appreciate this. It had a little arrow to a drop of water for hydration, with a little arrow to a bed for sleep. And then the arrows went around. So it made this like cycle. So it was sort of like this, what I now call like a nutritious life cycle, is all the different pillars in this logo. So I was talking about all these pillars and how they worked physiologically and behaviorally, how they all work together. I didn't just, even all these years ago, I didn't just talk about diet and nutrition and exercise. I talked about all of these other things, stress and sleep. And definitely people looked at me like I was a little bit crazy sometimes when they would just, again, this is, in the early 2000s, people would look at me and say, like, why aren't you just giving me a diet plan? You're a dietitian. Just give me a diet plan. Like, why are you asking about my stress? Why are you asking about my relationship? So anyway, I was practicing that philosophy from the very, very, very beginning. I think it was maybe 1 or 2 years in. It was very early on. I said, this name doesn't really reflect this logo and this like, I need a better name for all of this. And so I said, well, what are all these pillars together, working together? What do they represent? And that's where I came up with Nutritious Life. It's all of these things give you good nutrition. How you hydrate, how you sleep, how you manage stress, all of those things contribute to a nutritious life. So that's where it came from. And I always had this vision of having this, bigger business and it not just being, me.
Yeah.
So that's also why I focus on Nutritious Life. But I did go back and forth. I mean, it was Keri Glassman, Nutritious Life, and then it was Nutritious
Right.
Life by Keri Glassman, and then it's just Nutritious Life and Keri Glassman separate. So there's definitely been iterations. There's been changes to the logo multiple times. So I mean, as businesses grow and change, I mean, I always say, even McDonald's has changed its arches.
So Nutritious Life has shifted and pivoted a couple different times.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've changed my business based on either interests that have shifted or just things going on in my life that I needed to scale up. Like going through my divorce, I having the business, I was able to scale so that I could afford my life on my own.
Mm-hmm.
What caused the pivots in Nutritious Life's, all the different things that you've done? Because now you have such a beautiful community, and this, like you were saying earlier, that you weren't taught how to coach and how to run the business. You teach that in your amazing course.
Right.
What got you there? How did that come about?
Yeah, well, there's so many different turning points. When I first started and I even had that original logo, I created this binder for myself where I was like, I don't know how to run a business. I don't know, exactly how to coach and counsel. Of course, I took some classes in school, but I need to create a system. I created this binder and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do on session 1. And this is what I'm going to do in my second session with clients. And then I had a tab for marketing and this is how I'm going to market. And I just put on sort of that type A hat, organization, I put those organizational skills to work. And I just created how am I going to do this? And then I sort of worked on that philosophy of, which had just been growing over the years, of a nutritious life and all the pillars working together. So again, I created the binder kind of for myself to have a protocol and a system in my office. And then but from that very, very beginning, I thought to myself, okay, I didn't have anybody to learn this from. I want to teach people this at some point. So I always had this little bug in me that was I gotta I had that bug to take it, expand it at some point. And I started doing media and I started doing, TV, and I started being in magazines a lot. So I was doing it, and then I would get calls and emails from people all over the country that would say, hey, how did you start your practice? I'm a dietitian in Iowa, or I'm a dietitian. How did you do it? What are you doing? And I would say, well, I really got to take this binder and get it out to the world, get it out to other people that want to do this. But then it was many years until I did it, because then I was writing books, and then I was doing a lot of TV, and then I was working with brands. And then I had 2 little kids, and then I was getting divorced. And so I was this single mom, 2 little kids. I had a private practice. I was working with brands. I was doing media. I was writing books. There was just, when I look back to some of that, oh my gosh, when I look back on those days, sometimes I'm like, how did I survive? I remember being just constant chaos and running around. And sometimes I even look at these young, moms on social now, and they're doing their meditation in the morning and, then getting the kids off to school and all this stuff. And I'm like, are you really doing that? Because I remember those days, and I was teaching people how to stress less, but it was constant craziness as an entrepreneur and being a single mom and running, having these two little kids. I'll tell you, the first big pivot I'm just thinking was when, again, I had books, and I had multiple books out, working with brands, doing media, having had my private practice. But I said, I really wanted to now create this community and start this online certification. So that was a big moment. And I think that was because there was, online education was starting to be a thing. The digital world was becoming a bigger thing. I mean, when I started, we didn't even have social media. So online marketing was becoming a bigger thing. So that was sort of, and I had sat down with someone who I had known from more of the traditional media world. And I said, I really want to do this. I want to take this binder I have and get it out into the world. And he's like, so why don't you do it now? And I said, well, I'm filming a TV show for the next 3 weeks. And he said, well, how about after that? Why don't you film it? You can do it. You can just do it on your own. And I would remember thinking I can. And so that was a big add-on to my business. And then I pivoted when I was about to renew my lease for my business a couple years later. I had this big office because I had many dietitians that were working for me. And I'm like, I don't need this big office anymore. I want to focus on this digital side of my business. So that was a big pivot. And that was where I wanted to concentrate on that side of the business. So I passed off the practice to one of the women that works for me. And I really focused on the online certification, as
Yeah.
well as all of the other continue doing like the media work and all that. So that was a pivot. And that was partially because of, what was going on in the digital world, but also I would say, like you said, you got divorced. There was a pivot there. There were certain pivots, smaller pivots and shifts that happened then too. So yeah, that was the biggest one though.
I think that's allowing yourself to make those choices and not feeling like, well, I'm so pot committed to this practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's such a good model for women to see, because a lot of times, we change, our lives change, and maybe you don't even like doing what you're doing anymore. So seeing people who have like taken the leap into a new thing, even though they had something successful, I think it's such a good thing for people to see.
Well, you're right. You have to think about, okay, do I love what I'm doing? And obviously there's other reasons people do things, right?
Yeah,
It's
for
not
sure.
always that. I mean, that's the dream, but am I loving what I'm doing? Are there other ways of doing things? Are there ways of doing things that would fit and serve my life better than how I'm doing it now?
Right.
And that was a big part of it. At that point, I could have continued with doing all of it, but that was not going to serve me as a mom.
Yeah.
I was at that point, I had three businesses, right? I had my media business, I had my practice, and then I had this online business. And it was really like three businesses, and it was just too much. And I said, that's not, so what can I focus on? What is more scalable and sellable, and what will help me reach more people? Goal of Nutritious Life, to reach as many people as possible and help them elevate their nutrition. I mean, that's like the most basic mission from the very beginning, right? So how can I do that? So that you have to kind of take stock of like where you are in your life and where your business is, and
Yeah.
not be afraid to change things up, which I think that has served me well, is not being afraid of change.
Yeah.
I'm someone that likes change. Some people like don't like change. It scares them. And I don't know why, again, it's a little bit of that like jumping and finding the parachute. I don't mind change. I like change.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes people find it scary that they might not be getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. Like there's less security.
Yeah.
But what I always say is, though, what's so awesome is that anything can happen. And that's what's amazing. Like you could get an email the next day that changes your whole life. You could get an email the next day, or you could get a phone call the next day that gives you like the biggest opportunity of your entire life, and I think like that, like I love that. So I think whenever people get worried about, especially shifting from maybe a corporate secure job to like going off on their own, I always say like that you don't know necessarily exactly what's going to happen. And that's scary and hard. And you don't know exactly what's going to happen. And that's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally
So
agree.
yeah.
I'm a big, I love change. I think there's just something energetically really cool about the opportunity in change rather than the fear of losing something that I'm comfortable with or familiar with. I think
Yeah.
it's more exciting than
Mm-hmm.
scary.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so what was big first win in wherever stage it was that you dispelled some sort of imposter syndrome or something you were having? Like, what was the first time you remember, oh gosh, I'm actually doing this?
I would say there's probably a couple things. One, I remember when I rented that first office, and I kind of just went for it. Someone referred a client to me, and she was doing. I mean, and there could have been a couple other people before that, but this was one of the first people, and she was doing amazing. And then she referred someone else, and then someone else, and then someone else, and a couple of those people she referred a few other people, and I remember looking back after a few months thinking, I've just been booked from like this one person who was sort of the seed, right? And I said, wow, like I'm doing something right with these people. Like I know what I'm doing here. I have a good system. So I remember that was a moment where I was like, wow, like this is really working. This is
Yeah.
really going well. And then I would say I was pregnant with my son, who's, oh my gosh, this is crazy. He's going to be 22 in May.
Oh,
I was pregnant with him, and one of my clients um, actually was the first person who brought me on TV. He was a comedian, and he was doing a big weight loss story, and he said, "I want you to come on and do this for me as my nutritionist." And so I was on, it was on a Fox show. And it was funny. I almost didn't even know to be nervous. I was so naive to all of it. Like, I was just sort of like, okay, great. And I had wanted to do it. I had been wanting to do it. And I've been thinking about that and thinking about doing nutrition in the media. But it was, again, it was almost like I've got nothing to lose because I've never done this before. And there's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to do it. And anyway, I mean, I probably was more nervous than that, but when I look back on it, I just remember, I think more about being naive than I do think about being nervous. I think like I just was clueless about what I was doing. Anyway, but I did it, and it was great. And it was this great segment. And then I remember I got like multiple phone calls after that to continue doing segments. And I was like, and it was fun. And I was doing it. I was like, wow, like, I think I know what I'm doing here. And of course I still didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, oh, at least I was having fun with it. And I then put in the energy to actually learn what I was doing a little bit there.
Tell me about the media part, because it really plays into, a huge part or opportunity for people to market their brands.
Yeah.
How did you? I mean, I guess that was the first step into it, but
Yeah.
I know you teach this too.
Right.
What do you recommend somebody do to start getting media coverage?
Well, it's so different. I mean, now than then. I mean, like I just said, this was 22 years ago.
Yeah.
We didn't have, was there any social media then? I don't even know.
No,
I don't
AOL
even know
was
if
a
there
thing yet.
was there like when, well, there was AOL, I think. I think there was AOL, but I don't think, but was there Facebook? I mean, when did Facebook start? No, because Mark Zuckerberg when did he go to Harvard in like 2003 or 4, 5, 6, something like that.
Yeah.
So that was not around. Facebook was definitely not around. So yeah, there wasn't social media or anything like that. So TV and magazines was really where it was at. So there's still certain things that I think are tried and true, right? So first I'll say again, it was incredibly different. There's so many more opportunities now because everyone has access to media. We all have access to social media. We didn't have that. We didn't have cameras on our phones. We barely had phones.
Yeah.
But we definitely didn't have cameras on their phone. So we weren't able to practice like that. We weren't able to put ourselves out there. So the first thing I'll just say is the opportunities now are, from compared to what I had, I think are like times like a million, right? There's just so many more opportunities. And people will say it's the space is crowded. So maybe your space, whatever space you may be in, is more crowded. But I promise you there are 10x that or 100x that opportunities because of all of these different platforms.
That's true.
So you have to really think of it like that. And so I did that segment again. And like I said, it sort of fell in my lap, but it didn't just fall in my lap in the sense I was prepared for that, in the sense that I didn't know what I was doing, but mentally I think I was prepared. I had wanted to do that. I put it out there. So, but then I took that opportunity, and yes, producers called, but then I followed up with those producers. I then sent them ideas. When they called me, I canceled my schedule. I made sure I was available. I came prepared. I did, so you have to put in that work. You can't just expect, that it is going to just fall in your lap. You have to put out the work. And what I tell people now is, when it comes to at least the TV side of things, like people think I don't know anybody. Like everybody knows somebody. Everybody knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And there's so many ways to reach people now. Again, we didn't have LinkedIn. We didn't have social media. You can find people and start to build relationships and learn how to and pitch people. So that's like the TV side of it. But with magazines and online outlets too. Again, when I was doing this, it was more like you were in a magazine or like you weren't contributing somewhere. Now there's so many online outlets, small outlets that need content. So there's so many more opportunities. Like when I started doing this, I was in, every big magazine, like Women's Health, Shape, Glamour, every one of those, but there wasn't as many of these online outlets to go to. I think you just have to like literally say, like, is this something you want to do? Do you want to get quoted? Do you want to be an expert in your field? How are you going to do it? Well, start making a list of your places you want to be. Then make a list of people, of those people that you could connect. How can you connect with them? What are good stories? What are they covering? And don't send and pitch something to them that you would say is totally unrelated to something their audience would like. Make sure, like, do your homework. Find out, oh, I want to pitch this outlet. And you pitch something, they say, we don't do long form stories. Why are you pitching us a long form story? You know what I'm saying? Like, so know their audience, know how they do media, like find the people. So there's just so many different ways that people can put themselves out and out there now, again, on their own without even getting traditional media coverage.
I didn't think about that. There's so many more touch points, so many places that people can have, whether it's their words be seen or their own, actually being on a video in front of other eyeballs that
Yeah.
eventually be your audience.
Which is practice.
Yeah. The media stuff kind of really makes your personal brand more important than if you were just the founder of Nutritious Life. How do you balance both?
And that's another thing I think that has changed over the years. I think when I started out, I was, it was me. So people were coming to see me, regardless if the company was Body Fuel or Nutritious Life. It didn't matter. Like, people were coming to see me, right? So at first that was like me. And then when I changed the name of the company too, I also was thinking bigger. Like, I want to grow this. I want to build this. And at the time, again, I already said this, social media wasn't as big of a thing. Personal brands weren't as big of a thing as they are now. I felt like I should build something that is scalable without me. And I want to have like a real brand, a real business, and not just me. So that's why, again, I focused on Nutritious Life. But then at the same time, I was the expert. I was doing the media side of it. So they were separate, but still obviously completely connected, because I'm still the face of that company and it all goes together. But I think it's shifted. And like I said, at one point it was Nutritious Life by Keri Glassman. At one point it was Keri Glassman Nutritious Life, like the logo. And then now it's like Nutritious Life is just Nutritious Life. But I would say that over the past, probably, I don't know, 7 years, personal brands have become much, much bigger again. And then personal brands and people that are faces of larger companies have become, a much bigger thing, I think, than they ever were because of social media.
Right.
So I sort of started focusing on the personal side of things again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think now, that is, you were talking about spaces being so crowded, that can be a huge distinguisher,
Absolutely.
or differentiator rather. Like, consumers want to buy from a person. They don't want to buy from a company.
Exactly. Totally agree with you.
Yeah. So can you talk about the community that you've built inside of the Nutritious Life and the kind of things that you do and why? Why is, like, you do a yearly retreat? Why is that something that's important?
Oh gosh, that yearly retreat is so good. It is just so good. Okay, so Nutritious Life, as we've been talking about, is the business. It's been the private practice. It's been nutritiouslife.com, the media, the life wellness site. It's been all of that, and then it's also been, I'd say, home to the Nutritious Life studio. Is the more the B2B side, where I certify people to be nutrition and wellness coaches. And it's a 6-month online course. I would say it's hybrid, because it is asynchronous. You can go at your own pace, move along at your own pace, but we do have live coaching, at least 6 live events every month. They are not required, but it is a part of the program. So you really do get to know myself, but also other members of the team at Nutritious Life. And then also you get to meet the other people in the community. Again, if you want. And if you don't want to, you can still become certified without ever talking to one person, and that's fine too. The community is so mind-blowing. I mean, I think I've talked to you about them often. It's interesting. When I first started this, I thought, oh, I want other people to have the certification so they know how to, take that nutrition science and put it into consumer friendly language to help people. And they have this whole philosophy and program to follow, and they know how to build a business. But I really didn't consider, like, what a community was going to be built, because again, people weren't talking about communities as much back then. This was 2014. So it just wasn't something we focused on as much. So I really had no idea the impact that the community was going to have. And it's just been ginormous. It's incredible. So I guess just to go on and tell you a little bit more about the program, it is nutrition science, nutrition coaching, building a business, and then this whole community aspect. So you asked about the the yearly retreat, and it is. I always say it's sort of a retreat meets a mastermind.
Mm.
Really meets like a conference, because it's sort of everything in one, because that is this 2-day in-person event where we have people from the community. It's only people in the community join us, and we have incredible speakers all day long each day. So there's this incredible education happening, but then there's also amazing food, and it's masterminding, I say, because a lot of these people already know each other now, even if it's just online. They have the same nutrition training, so they have that in common. So there's also a lot of great masterminding and networking going on. And then it's retreat-esque, because we also have some fun wellness stuff we do, like sound baths, etc. So it's really an incredible weekend. And it's so important for the community, because I think so many of us live in this digital world, that it is so important to pull people together and really be able to, tap into that love more pillar, which is that, connection and relationship pillar. So
I think that makes what you offer so different from a lot of other things that I see out there. Because how many of us have purchased a course or gone through a certification program? You don't finish it. You don't feel supported. So you don't follow through, and you don't have that community aspect. And I think what you've created is so powerful, because you give all of those touch points, all of that support. And when you have a group of people that you're going through this with, you're going to show up not just for yourself, but for them, because maybe they need you today, or, so I just think that's so beautiful. Yeah. And how does that make you feel when you see these people come together who've never met, and they're hugging? And
no, it's honestly, it's really overwhelming. It's overwhelming in the best way. But I think about it, and I'm like, this is wild how much these people love each other and how much they support each other. And they really do. I mean, and I think that's also a cool thing, is that people come from all different types of backgrounds. I mean, we have someone that was a comedian, we have someone that was in pharma sales, we have people from someone that was a nurse, people from all different backgrounds. So they bring not only their own like personalities and experiences in life, but like they bring all these different skill sets that then, help each other. Like they support one another in all kinds of ways. And it's just, it's overwhelming. I always say, at the end of that weekend, I mean, it's a lot of work, but I think aside from just it being a lot of work putting it on, it's so like emotionally fulfilling and overwhelming that every year I always am just exhausted for the next week. Like I'm just tapped out, because I'm just like, woo, and in a good way, way. It's just that, like, it's just, it takes that, I guess that's the only way to describe it. It's just overwhelming in a good way.
Yeah, I just think it's so beautiful, and creating community, and the lives that you've been able to change, and probably that ripple effect that's happened, because now all of these people are changing lives too, all these people that they work with.
Well, I say that to them all the time. I'm always like, you really have to sit back and think for a second. Like, think about, like, someone will share something, like some breakthrough they had with a client, like a 15-year-old boy client. And then I'll say, like, think about that. That kid is now maybe affecting a friend. That kid's maybe going to go on, his life is going to be changed. And then I'm like, and think about like the other clients that you did that with today. And that client then also had a conversation with her daughter. And then, and I said, and that's just that one person. And then think about all of you out there doing this. Think about how, and we've got 4,000 people all over the world, 36 countries. I'm like, think about all of the lives that have been touched directly by all of you, and then indirectly by all of you. And then from those people, that ripple effect is just huge. I think about it all the time. Yeah. I really do.
But something like that, I'm sure, lifts you on days when, I mean, or maybe do you ever still get like the imposter syndrome?
Oh, of course. Of course. Oh my God. Because I've had so many big failures throughout my career. I've had so many bombs and so many failures and so many things that I get down about and think, oh, I could have done that better. And I bombed that and I failed that. And that, like, I completely get it. I mean, I think that's I don't know. I mean, do people never have imposter syndrome? Do people always feel, I don't know. Does anybody get fully over that? I don't know. That's not going to be me.
I
And
can't imagine.
I don't care to ever get over it completely. Like, why not?
Yeah.
It's okay to have a little bit of imposter syndrome always. It's okay to have a little bit, some insecurities always. It's okay to feel a little down about yourself sometimes. Like, you don't want to feel like that all the time, or you don't want to feel like that a lot of the time, but like, I think that's normal.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like saying, you're never going to emotionally eat again. Like, you're supposed to like figure it out and improve your relationship with food, but it's not supposed to be perfect. You're not supposed to feel like that all the time. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, having a little imposter syndrome here and there, feeling down about myself a little bit here and there. You just want to make it like a lot less than you feel good. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep that balance.
Yeah.
Um,
But those things from the community definitely make me feel good on those days for sure.
I bring it up. I had a moment last week where I was talking with my team and I was definitely like holding back tears because we had a huge milestone we were trying to hit and we didn't hit it. And man, it just gutted me.
Yeah.
But I think I didn't, not that I don't expect to feel those things. I just didn't expect it to hit me so hard.
Yeah.
But I think, being in this business as long as I have been, and I now recognize it quicker and am able to bounce back quicker.
Totally.
But what helped so much was talking about it. And then also we happened to have a meeting that night for my community, and them talking about the impact that this has made on their lives.
Totally.
I was like, okay.
It's okay. Right. Exactly. Because I'm helping the people I'm supposed to be helping right now.
Right. I know. I think part of being an entrepreneur is just, mindset and
oh my
having the
gosh,
patience too, to
patience, mindset, being able, I always say I have like the 5-minute rule. When I get upset, when I have a disappointment with something with work, take 5 minutes, feel like crap. And then I go and do something. And I say, then I have to go and cross one thing off my list. And it could be a really small thing, but crossing one thing off your list, it's momentum. You just need to have that momentum to move you forward.
That's a good quick tip.
Yeah.
I have some rapid fire questions and then we're going to end our beautiful conversation. Are you ready?
Amazing. Yeah.
What is the best business advice you've ever received and who gave it to you?
I had an investor once tell me that I should spend as little time as absolutely possible on every single thing that anyone else can do.
Oh.
So anything anyone else can do, you shouldn't be doing.
That's good.
Because think about how much time we waste on things that we're not using, like our gifts and our real expertise.
If you had to give a TED Talk tomorrow, what would the topic be?
Living a nutritious life, of course.
Yes. What's one thing about the wellness industry that absolutely drives you crazy?
Okay. And I've been talking about this one a lot lately, and I don't know if this is going to be easy to sum up in a little rapid fire answer, but the polarization of things, where things like, I'm just going to use the example of seed oils. We've got people over here that are defending them. And then we have people over here that are, like, if you have seed oil at all, like, you're going to keel over and die tomorrow. Like, I actually think most people, if they weren't on social media and presenting it like that way, and they actually had like a longer conversation, a real conversation, they'd actually probably be a lot closer to one another than they are. And I think that oftentimes it is because of the social media that it really polarizes us. And it's really, there's somewhere really more in the middle. And I think we're actually saying a lot more things. I think we're saying things that are a lot more similar, but what it does is it just confuses the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is your 1-minute pep talk for someone who's just about to quit on their dream?
I have to say, if you have any ounce of passion left for what you're doing, you have to remember that all the failures are part of the journey. It's just part of the journey. And you have to just put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward.
I'm sure there are many people that needed to hear that today. Okay, future self. Where do you see Keri 5, 10 years? What does that look like for you?
Whew, that's a hard one. That's a hard one because I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I'm not 100% sure because, so my daughter's 18. She's going off to college next year, or this year in September, August, whenever. Don't know where yet, but she is going to college. And so I'm going to be an empty nester. So I've been thinking a lot about that. But I think after working for this many years in this stage of life, like that's really where I want to be 5 and 10 years from now, doing only things with work that I truly love and bring me so much joy, and I feel like are doing good. I want to be focusing in on the things that I love with what I do.
Yeah, I think business and life are completely intertwined, and having a focus and goal of, just joy and things that light you up, that'll trickle into your business and your life and all of it. So I think that's a great goal. All right. So I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'm going to have all of your links in the show notes. I cannot say enough about your program. I've seen what you offer. I've seen your community, and it's amazing what you've built, but you are truly inspirational, and it wouldn't be what it is if you weren't helming that. So
thank you, Kendra. Thank you so much for having me on. And I know you're building an incredible community here too. So everybody is so lucky to have you spearheading that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Keri.
Make sure you check out the show notes if you are interested in connecting with Keri and finding out about her Nutritious Life studio program, where you can actually become a certified health coach. Okay, my friend, if this episode fired you up even a little bit, it's time to take that spark and do something with it. Inside Eve Academy, we blend soul and strategy to help you build a business that actually fits your life, not the other way around. We're talking monthly accountability, expert-led workshops, and a community app that becomes your go-to space for advice, support, and full-on celebration when you land that client or finally launch the thing. And the best part is you're surrounded by women who totally get you because they've been you. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start. Tap the link below to join the movement. We're so ready to meet you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your favorite entrepreneur in the making, because the world needs more bold women doing work that lights them up. Catch you inside.